And a gracious good evening to you and yours. This is your announcer for the World's on Fire podcast, dead President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And I say to you that I have some personal experience with political assassinations, and I am against them. But that does not take away from the fact that in life, Charlie Kirk was a fucking asshole. Be that as it may that as it be, here is your host for the Facebook Live at 6:05 World's on Fire podcast, John McIntyre. Woohoo! Thank you so much, dead President Kennedy. Always good to have you around, especially at moments like this. You do indeed have a lot of experience, and so does your family, with political assassinations. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, Mr. and Mrs. Pittsburgh, and all the ships at sea. This is the World's on Fire podcast. I am your resident nattering nabob of negativism, John McIntyre. Here now are some headlines from the week that was. There is great irony in the fact that Charlie Kirk was shot, details momentarily. Some Republican lawmakers are proposing that we pay tribute to this racist, homophobic bigot. That is utterly absurd. This just in, a long time ago, the president raped somebody and nobody cares, except the judge who says that Trump still has to pay $83 million. Was it really Trump who drew the naked woman cartoon with his signature as the pubic hair for Jeffrey Epstein? You bet your sweet bippy it was. Why is Trump so afraid of admitting is the cartoon's author? What is he hiding, and will it ever come out? I don't know. Did you hear about the former president of a different country who tried to overthrow an election and they put him in jail? Yeah, the opposite of what we do in this country. And Kamala says that Uncle Joe had a little too much ego and should have dumped out earlier. No shit, Sherlock. We are live from Baby Boomer Central, where Jack Kennedy, Jack Kennedy clearly has my back, along with John Paul George and Ringo, who rather fancy the podcast as well. So as an ancient baby boomer warrior might just say, let's rock and roll. I am sick to my stomach. I'm sick that there's been yet another political assassination. I'm sick that Kash Patel was sucking up to Trump at the Utah news conference, announcing that they've caught the 23-year-old dude who apparently did the deed. Now is not the time for more sucking up to Trump. And Patel thanked Trump for providing the resources to get the job done. In fact, Trump has severely cut FBI resources. I'm sick that Patel said this, quote, "This is what happens when you let good cops be cops." I don't even know what the fuck that means, but the asshole Patel was attempting to take credit for the arrest, even though the suspect was not located by federal law enforcement. The suspect's dad turned him in. This was not Detective Columbo or Quincy or Mannix or Joe fucking Friday. This was an assassin's dad turning the kid in. I am sick that an idiotic Pennsylvania lawmaker says he's going to put forward a bill to make a state holiday in August in honor of Charlie Kirk. What in the actual fuck is this moron talking about? In D.C., Congresswoman Nancy Mace announced she will introduce a concurrent resolution to authorize Charlie Kirk to lie in wait in honor at the U.S. Capitol. To lie in state, that is. Mace said, quote, "He inspired millions and led countless souls to Christ. It is not the job of the government to lead people to Jesus, for Christ fucking sakes." I am sick to my stomach that obese orange Jesus, when asked how he would bring the country together, said, "I'm not interested, to tell you the truth. I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but I'm not interested, because only the radical left are the bad guys. We could not possibly have a bigger imbecile in office at a time of crisis." What in the actual fuck? Cindy Weiner. Hi, Cindy Weiner. Hello, Bill McIntyre. Hello, all of you who are tuning into the World's on Fire. I am not advocating that we assassinate every asshole. The world is full of too many assholes. And I'm not saying it's a good thing that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. But what I am saying is that Charlie Kirk was a real fucking asshole, not deserving of being assassinated, but certainly not deserving of being lionized in death. Here's just one example. College professor Stacy Patton was on Kirk's digital hit list. That meant that any college professor whose ideology didn't line up with Kirk's was a target, and he would tell his thousands of followers to harass them and try to get them shit-canned however they could. Quote, "For weeks my inbox and voicemail were deluged, mostly with white men who spat venom through the phone, bitch, cunt, the N-word. They threatened all manner of violence. They overwhelmed the university's PR lines and the president's office, demanding that I be fired," said the professor. She said she had to hire security. Quote, "Kirk's watch list has terrorized legions of professors across the country, women, black faculty, queer scholars, basically anybody who challenged white supremacy and gun culture. People had their jobs threatened, their lives threatened. Some just up and fucking quit. Once again, quoting the professor, this is the culture of violence that Charlie Kirk built. He normalized violence. It is so revolting to watch a bipartisan wave of grief sweep over this hateful racist as if he was a neutral community servant. End of quotation. Somebody threatens your job or your life, as in the case of this professor, you just might despise them as well, Fred McIntosh. So let's face it, Charlie Kirk was a disgusting racist, sexist, and homophobe. There are multiple quotes to prove this. Google them if you feel like it. They're all over the inner tubes. He spread COVID-19 misinformation. He was an election denier who helped get violent protesters to the Capitol. But let's put all that aside for the moment. The most salient quote for me was his infamous quote regarding gun control. In retrospect, it really is interesting food for thought. He said, quote, "I think it's worth it to have the cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights," Kirk once said in an interview. First of all, God-given rights, what the fuck does God have to do with our founding fathers and the Second Amendment? Fucking nothing. That's the reason idiots like this idiot become such dangerous idiots. If you think God is on your side, it's very difficult to argue with that. Would Charlie have advocated this? That his own life be taken at his young age in order to preserve the Second Amendment if he knew that was the outcome? I don't know. I saw one USA Today commentator saying the commentator, was disgusted that liberals were using this argument to say they've won the gun control argument. I don't know that liberals have won anything per se, but it sure as fuck is worth pointing out, at the very least, for the sake of irony, if nothing else. Shelley Urbank Wolf, Matt Berry, Barbara Busby. The World's on Fire podcasts, whatever you prefer, and I prefer podcasts, is brought to you by Venmo. Thank you, Mark Howe, and thank you, Bill and Hank, for this week and last week Venmoing me some money to help defray the costs of this fine podcast. Venmo me at John-McIntyre-27. You can just Google Venmo and John McIntyre. It'll have a picture of me and a microphone. By the Parkway Theater, where a week from Saturday, on September 20th, we will have an outstanding storytelling show featuring David Newell, Mr. McFeely, Bethany Hallam, the county councilwoman, WPXI just retired anchorman David Johnson, and yours truly. Get your tickets and your tickets at parkwaytheater.org. And by Ruby's Wine House, the best damn wine bar in Allegheny County. It's in Coraopolis, don't you know? Check it out at rubyswinehouse.net. Bob Ben, was Laura Loomer's tweet that set the kid in motion? You think so? She said Kirk stabbed Trump in the back. Maybe that's because Kirk had still been calling for the release of the Epstein files. Bill McIntyre, cost a slice of pizza and a slug of wine. Well, there you have it. All right, I'm going to say something that just may shock you. Hold on to your hats. Might want to wake the kids, phone the neighbors. There was a time in America, and it was a very different time. It was a very, very different time than we are currently experiencing. Get this. A long time ago, in a land seemingly far, far away, there was a country called the United States of America. And they had certain expectations for their leaders. And one of those expectations was that their leader was the kind of person who wouldn't rape someone. A court ruling this week affirmed that Donald Trump owes E. Jean Carroll 83 million smackers. Why? Because he raped her, and then he defamed her afterwards by lying about having raped her and impugning her character. During the trial, there was a photo of E. Jean Carroll talking to Donald Trump as presented as evidence, yet he claims he never met her. But back to my original point. It used to be scandalous if a political figure raped someone. A long time ago, it actually would have been disqualifying. We would have all said collectively, sorry, Mr. Candidate, you can't get elected because you raped somebody. Hence, people may not like you and they won't vote for you. That was then. This is now. Welcome to now, when Jeffrey Epstein's best pal has to pay money to a woman because he raped her a long time ago and then lied about it. And it's barely a blip on the radar screen. How did we get here? Could it be because we're surrounded by idiots? David Wagonik, Jim Dunmeyer? So remember the birthday cartoon, the drawing of a naked woman with Trump's signature posing as her pubic hair? I just happen to have a copy right here. You can see that. There's his signature, Donald, as the pubic hair. And It was a joking around letter that Trump sent to Epstein for his 50th birthday, the one Trump haplessly denies that he penned. The birthday book was turned over by Epstein's estate in response to a subpoena from the House Oversight Committee, and that's how we all get to see all this shit this week. So, Axios reports analysis by the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times found that Trump's alleged signature in the birthday book, which contained only his first name rather than his full name that he uses on official documents, did indeed match the style of several handwritten letters that he penned throughout the 90s and 2000s. Of course it did. Who would fabricate such a thing, thinking it would be believable? No one. It would be too absurd, and that's how you fucking know that it's real. These two perverts had sex on the brain 24/7. Remember that in the court documents, a woman named Katie Johnson claimed she was raped by Trump at Epstein's New York City apartment when she was 13 years old. That could serve as a clue that Trump is a fucking pedophile, just like his best friend Jeffrey Epstein. Apparently, even if you're a star, they don't always let you do it. Sometimes, apparently, you have to rape them. And that's our president for you, the rapist in chief. I repeat, there was a time when people might have actually cared about this. Isn't that something? Oh, and it's one more brazen Trump lie, the claim that he didn't fabricate this cartoon or draw this cartoon, which, of course, he did. That's a girl, not a woman, extra creepy. I'm with you, Pat Howe. Pat McBride, Supreme Court will get Trump off on everything. E. Jean is screwed. It's possible. I hope you're wrong there, Pat, Mr. McBride, but I fear that you could be right. Jim Dunmire, chicka bow wow. All right, let me play Captain Obvious for a moment here, will you? Trump sent the birthday cartoon with his signature, posing as a woman's pubic hair for Epstein's 50th birthday. This we know. Trump is lying through his teeth when he denies it. It's obviously his signature. Why? Why is he lying? What is he scared of? He beat the grab him by the pussy scandal. Couldn't he just explain this as a written form of locker room talk? It is obviously because the truth is scandalous and devastating and incriminating. But what is the truth? Will we get to it? I don't know, and I don't know. But the fact that Trump is so obviously lying about the cartoon, the fact that the lie itself is so goddamn obvious, means that the truth has got to be some serious shit. By the way, Trump wasn't the only one sending Jeffrey sexually oriented bits of alleged humor for his birthday. In one drawing sent by somebody else, a male figure who presumably Epstein... Okay, so he drew this cartoon. And in the cartoon, Epstein is giving lollipops to a group of girls. And it's labeled 1983. On the right side of the same page, an older Epstein is shown being massaged by 4 nearly naked women labeled 2003. Get it? He recruits them when they're young and fucks them later. This is what passes for humor between Epstein and his best buddies. On another page, a photo shows that Epstein holding a large novelty check, allegedly written by Donald Trump. This is the sense of humor of whoever had this note written. A check for $22,500. An accompanying note jokes that Epstein sold a fully depreciated woman to Trump for $22,500. New York Times reporting that the note was from Joel Pashkow, a member of Trump's Mar-a-Lago club. Bottom line, plenty of people knew what was up. They're all making sex jokes because they all had sex on the brain, and they all had sex with young women on the brain. Meantime, remember when Speaker Mike Johnson said that Trump was an FBI informant who was trying to dig up dirt, pedophile dirt on Epstein? He kind of casually mentioned it while throwing shit up against the wall to see if it might stick. And his office is now walking all of that back. And that's because it was a ridiculous assertion to begin with. How exactly do you make a completely outrageous claim like that he was an FBI informant, and then just walk it back with an oopsie doopsie? Quote, said Mr. Speaker, what I was referring to in that long conversation was that was what Epstein's victim attorneys said. More than a decade ago, President Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, and he was one of the only prominent people, as everyone has reported, that was willing to help law enforcement go after this guy, who was a disgusting child abuser, sex trafficker, all the allegations. That's what they heard, so the president was helpful in that. This is Speaker Johnson's convoluted explanation of why he claimed momentarily, making a ridiculous, stupid assertion that Trump was an FBI informant trying to nail Epstein. That's just ridiculous. I'm not even going to read the rest of that. It's just too ridiculous to even continue. Did he have a stroke at the 9/11 tribute? I don't know, Jim Dunmire. So, what's the difference between the United States of America and Brazil? Well, for one thing, when somebody tries to overthrow the government, and they do it in plain sight so that everybody can see what they're up to, They put the guy who was behind that movement on trial, and they fucking convict him. You know, like they do in countries where they care about justice. From the New York Times, Brazil's Supreme Court on Thursday convicted former President Jair Bolsonaro of overseeing a failed conspiracy to overturn the 2022 Brazilian election in a coup plot that included disbanding courts, empowering the military, and assassinating the president-elect. 4 of the 5 justices weighed in on the case. They voted to convict Mr. Bolsonaro and 7 co-conspirators, including his running mate, the defense minister, and a Navy commander, in a forceful rebuke by one of the very institutions that these men sought to overthrow. The justices were now expected to decide on a potentially lengthy prison sentence. Mr. Bolsonaro, 70, could face decades in prison. What happened after Trump tried to overthrow the government? Oh, yeah. Merrick Garland sat on his fucking hands too long. The prosecution of the criminal insurrectionist Donald Trump took way too long to get underway. The next thing you know, millions of idiots in America with incredibly short memories put the traitorous bastard back in office, and then Jack Smith had to fold up his tent. Fucking ridiculous. Yes, David Roth, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Brazil has a coup every 9 years. Yes, they've had many coups, that is true, but apparently they're trying to right the ship, if you will. Jim Dunmeyer, he kicked him out because Epstein was stealing his girls, no doubt. And now, with a word about Ruby's Winehouse, since we've been talking so much about cartoons that Trump drew and that other people who wanted to send messages, birthday messages to Jeffrey Epstein drew, I thought we'd stick with the classic cartoon character, Quick Draw McGraw for Ruby's Winehouse. Oh, hey, boys and girls, this is Quick Draw McGraw. And even though I'm the fastest gun in the West, sometimes I like to slow things down and go have me a sarsaparilla or two at Ruby's Winehouse in Coraopolis. How about that, little Baba Louie? You want to go down there and have a sarsaparilla? Gee, I don't know, Quickstraw. Every time I go at the door, ICE agents try to disappear me. It might not be a good idea, I think. I'll do the thinning around here, Baba Louie. We're going to head down there because they got the best damn wine in Allegheny County. They give you a fair pour. And they got seasonal cocktails. What do you think of them seasonal cocktails, Baba Louie? I don't think I should go outside because the ICE people are trying to kidnap me, I think. I'll do the thinning around here, Baba Louie. The thing is, you can check them out on the internet, rubyswinehouse.net. It's the best damn wine bar in Allegheny County. Right, Baba Louie? I think it is. If you say so, I think. I'll tell you one last time. I'll do the thinning around here, Baba Louie. And I'm telling you, I thin, you ought to get down to Ruby's Winehouse in Coraopolis. Now back to that nattering nabob of negativism, Johnny Mac. Thank you so much, Quick Draw McGraw. Good to have an appearance from an ancient cartoon character. Mel Blanc is rolling in his grave. Was Mel Blanc the guy who voiced Quick Draw McGraw? Fred, I'm not sure. Baba Booey, says David Rupp. I get you. All right, why did the FBI director Kash Patel fire a bunch of people at the FBI? Was it because they were negligent in their duties? Had they been insubordinate somehow? No, it was merely to please Donald Trump, who wanted some heads to roll. The FBI had the nerve, for example, to go to Mar-a-Lago and find all those stolen documents that Trump said he didn't have, and they knew he was lying. Anyway, apparently you can't necessarily just fire FBI folks because Trump wants some heads to roll, because 3 former top FBI officials are suing Kash Patel and AG Pam Bondi, saying that their firings were mandated by the White House and the Department of Justice, and that Patel followed their orders to keep his job. Patel, the suit claimed, explained that he had to fire people because his superiors told him to fire people, because his ability to keep his own job depended on the removal of the agents who worked on cases involving President Trump. Patel explained that there was nothing he or anyone else could do to stop these firings because the FBI tried to put the president in jail, and he hasn't forgotten it, said Kash Patel. According to the lawsuit, Patel, a Trump loyalist and former White House and DOJ official, told others that he knew such firings violated the FBI rules designed to protect agents from being fired or otherwise retaliated against for having worked on specific investigations. You know, all we have left is the courts, and hopefully we've got some judges who have some balls. Matt Berry, we do live in a land of short attention spans. Oh, my God, do we? Jimmy D, better watch that accent. ICE is listening. I'm afraid to go outside because ICE agents are lurking in the distance, I think. From the New York Times, the Supreme Court on Monday lifted a federal Georgia's order prohibiting government agents from making indiscriminate immigration-related stops in Los Angeles in an area that challengers called blatant racial profiling. Bottom line is, the Supreme Court says that they can continue to blatantly racial profile in Los Angeles because they have to back Trump and his horrible, disgusting, round him up, lock him up, and throw away the key without due process actions. What kind of madness are we talking about here? The New York Times reports that one plaintiff, Jason Brian Gavidia, a U.S. citizen born in East L.A., was stopped by a masked agent while he was working on his car outside a tow yard. The encounter was captured in a video. The agent asked whether Mr. Gavidia was an American, and he said yes. The agent then asked him what hospital he was born in, and he said he didn't know. According to the lawsuit, the agent and a colleague proceeded to slam Mr. Gavidia against a metal gate, twist his arm, and seize his phone. Fearing for his life, Gavidia offered to show the agents his ID. The lawsuit says the agents took the ID and about 20 minutes later returned Gavidia's phone and set him free. They never returned his ID. This shit is happening in the United States of America. I'm not sure if I laid that out, but if you might have gotten the idea, he is suing the federal government. So, I don't know. It's the most frightening time to be a citizen in the United States of America, and I say that more frightening than after 9/11, and I say that more frightening than after the attempted coup in 2021 in January, and I say that after the 60s when you were killing Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy and John Kennedy and Malcolm X and others. And all were very, very frightening times. But in my opinion, this is equally, if not more, fucking frightening. Kamala, as you may know, weighed in on Joe Biden's decision to run for re-election. His initial decision to go for it. In retrospect, Kamala writes in her new book of letting Joe and Jill Biden decide on their own whether the then president should have tried to run for re-election. That line of thinking that we need to let them decide, quote, she says, I think it was recklessness. It's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that, like a mantra, as if we'd all been hypnotized. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision. So I think Kamala is floating a trial balloon to see if anybody thinks she should run again. And it's a free country, and if she wants to, she should run again. But she can't win. And I don't think the Democrats would be dumb enough to give her the nomination. And I like Kamala, and I think she's intelligent, and I think she'd make a capable president. And I think it's unfair that people, for whatever reason, judge her as something less than somebody who would be a competent president. But I also think they do. I don't know why she's somewhat unpopular, but she is. Speaking of infamous gun violence, do you fucking believe that 70-year-old Mark David Chapman is still trying to get parole after murdering John Lennon? I can't believe it myself. I had to die when I was 40 years old. Now I'm floating around up here in heaven. I can't even go to Ruby's wine bar to knock a few back. It sucks. Chapman appeared before a parole board, which had the good sense to deny him parole for the 14th time. Chapman, as you know, fatally shot Lennon on the night of December 8th of 1980 as the musician and his wife Yoko were returning to their Upper West Side apartment. Lennon had signed an autograph for Chapman on a copy of his recently released album, Double Fantasy, earlier that day. Chapman was arrested within minutes, sitting near the shooting scene with a copy of J.D. Salinger's novel, The Catcher in the Rye. Lennon, as I mentioned, was only 40 years old. Chapman previously expressed remorse for the crime. Quote, I knew what I was doing, and I knew it was evil, and I knew it was wrong, but I wanted the fame so much that I was willing to give everything and take a human life, he told the parole board 3 years ago. Oh, well, excuse the fuck out of me. If you were doing it for that kind of a reason, because you wanted to be famous, and therefore you felt you just had no other choice, we got to let you walk the streets. Bill McIntyre, I could have been somebody. But you are somebody. I am somebody. All right. Get your questions ready for Ask John Anything. Thanking our sponsors again. Ruby's Wine House, the best damn wine bar in Allegheny County. Get your tickets for the storytelling show. It's September 20th, a week from Saturday. Myself, David Johnson, Bethany Hallam, Mr. David Newell, Mr. McFeely. Parkwaytheater.org. Get them today because they're going up fast. Thank you, Mark Howe, for your very generous Venmo contribution. Thank you, Bill and Hank, for your very generous contribution. This podcast also partially sponsored by Driftwood Oven in Lawrenceville. Driftwood Oven in Lawrenceville, home of this pizza, which has pepperoni and all sorts of interesting shit otherwise. Pepperoni and other interesting shit pizza at the Driftwood Oven in Lawrenceville. This is Bernie Sanders. If you need a Jewish space laser, an authentic George Soros Jewish space laser, you might need one in these dangerous times to protect yourself. Just dial 1-800-JEW-LASER. That's 1-800-JEW-LAZR. Shelley Wolf, elections, silly board. There will be no elections. I hope you're wrong.
I'm so glad we had this time together, just to have a laugh, ha 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 ha, or sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes the time, it's time to load my bong, bong, bong.
Paul Haley is watching from South Carolina. Oh, good. So that's probably nice and warm down there, I'm guessing. Any other questions for Ask John Anything? Cheers, John. Have a great weekend. You too, Barbara Busby. Barbara Busby has been watching. Thank you. Any questions for Ask John Anything? It's astounding that Nancy May suggests that Charlie Kirk lie in state in the Capitol Rotunda. It's even more ridiculous that this idiotic Republican Pennsylvania lawmaker said he wants a national holiday. By the way, in August for some reason, I don't know why, the first Monday in August, or I'm sorry, a state holiday. Why would we do that? What earthly reason? What could you even pretend was a legitimate reason to have a holiday for Charlie Kirk, who, by the way, once said that Clarence Thomas was much more deserving of a holiday than Martin Luther King, which is one of the stupidest things anyone has ever said, ever. How about the Phillies Karen? I don't know if I know about the Phillies Karen, David. You're welcome, Bob Ben. Fred McIntosh. Oh, thank you very much, Fred McIntosh. Any other questions for Ask John Anything? It is the weekend. It is beautiful weather here in Western Pennsylvania. I look forward to telling you an amazing story about when I was in high school and I had to give an extemporaneous speech. We all had to put ideas for a speech in a hat and then draw them out. So I wrote a really obnoxious idea for a speech, hoping that somebody else would give it, and then I fucking drew it myself accidentally out of the hat. And then I got in trouble, and then I got sent to the principal's office. This is the story that I'll be telling 1 week from tomorrow on September 20th at the Parkway Theater. Get your tickets, parkwaytheater.org. Influencers Day, says Pat Howe. How much is Paul Skeens worth? I don't know. Worth all that in a bag of chips, worth everything in the world. I think he'll be here for 2 more years if we can only get some fucking bats. By the way, the game is on Sportsnet tonight. It's not just on a streaming service against the Washington Nationals, although does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? Who is the most talented Beatle? You know, John has always been my favorite Beatle, and they were all very talented. In fact, Ringo was much more talented than I previously believed. I've seen so many drummers comment on what a great drummer Ringo was. And it took me all of that and listening to them explain why he was great for me to understand why he was great. But probably because he was the most versatile and could do the most things, at least I think that's true, I'd say Paul McCartney. He could play any instrument. I mean, you know, George and the sitar, all that's pretty impressive. And John Lennon, his songwriting, my favorite Beatles songs are John Lennon songs. Tomorrow Never Knows, Baby You're a Rich Man, Strawberry Fields. I love all the McCartney songs too, and I love the George Harrison songs. But I guess I would, if I had to get gun to my head, I'd say the best one, the most talented one anyway, was Paul McCartney. But my favorite Beatle will always be John. Why couldn't the Cheeto fly the flag at half-mast when Jimmy Carter passed? Yeah. By the way, it's half-staff, Jim. And I only know that because when I covered the space shuttle disaster in 1986, I said that flags were flying half-mast, and my executive producer pointed out to me that, no, a mast is on a ship. It's half-staff. So I changed it. Bonus points for Ringo, married to Barbara Bach. I'll give you that. Peace and love, peace and love. I know a thing or two about getting a good piece, at least back in the day. And all you need is love. Back then I used to think all you needed was a peace. Well, it is coming down to the wire. Oh, the season end. Let's go Bucks. Go out with a flare. Yeah, all right, Mark Howe. I admire your continuing support and your continuing desire to be an enthusiastic fan for one of the worst teams in baseball history, I would argue, with a few exceptions like Paul Skeens. Any other questions for us, John? Anything? Lord Willin and the Crick don't rise. Peter Piper picked pickle peppers. How many pickle peppers did Peter Piper pick? She sells seashells by the seashore. Toy boat, toy boat, toy boat. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy river. Lord Willin and the Crick don't rise. I will be back next week in this same time slot. Oh, and I will, of course, post this. Go Cubs to you too, Bob Ben. If you missed the beginning of the rant and you want to see the beginning of the rant, I will post it on my page and many others. You too, Gigi Gerben. Have a good weekend. Feel free to take the example of Mark Howe and Bill and Hank and Venmo me some cash money to help defray the costs of the production of the podcast. Bye-bye to you, Pat Howe. All right. I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks, Paul Haley, everybody. I hope that you will be there along with me. I will post the recorded version momentarily. See you next week. Be there. Night, night, Mark Howe. Aloha.